So there was much controversy about how the Supreme Court Museum was built. That also leads us to the question about how the funds are being spent when it comes to infrastructure built within the court premises.
So this is a very interesting point, Anusha, because what had happened was that till I think for the first 70 years of the existence of the Supreme Court, there was no structured mechanism or rather institutionalized stakeholder consultation when any infrastructure was to be built in Supreme Court. So the first Supreme Court was built in the 50s, and then there was an addition, if I'm not mistaken, around the 90s when that those additional courtrooms were added at the back. And now recently this new building has come up where Apughar used to be. So all this was done without really or in real sense consulting the bar or having a proper consultation with the bar or with the stakeholders of the institution. So then what happened was that there was this land on the ring road which had been allocated for the purposes of these lawyers' chambers and for something to do with Supreme Court. I think there was some record room or something to be partly used for that. So I then discussed with the then Chief Justice. I said there's no point of having a Supreme Court office on the ring road far away from the Supreme Court, and it will not be convenient for any Supreme Court infrastructure to come there. Let the whole building be lawyers' chambers. And I think it was Justice Lalit who was the Chief Justice of India then, and he said, Vikas, since it is a allocation for 1/3, 2/3, we can't do it on our own, so I think better we can do it on the judicial side, so you file a writ petition. So I got a writ petition filed on behalf of the Supreme Court Bar Association, and he issued notice in the matter, and then he demitted office and Justice Chandrachud took over. Then Justice Chandrachud would not list the matter. About 6-7 times it got listed and he would not take it up. He would keep listing other matters and not take up this matter. And 7-8 times I mentioned it for listing. He didn't even list it in spite of mentioning. One senior judge told me that he's avoiding to list this matter because he's having some other, intention with regard to that land. And that really upset me. And my tenure was coming to an end and I was not going to contest after that. So I knew if I don't escalate this matter now, this land will completely go away from the, for the use of the lawyers. So I mentioned it again in his court, and when he was not, ready to give me an immediate answer about the listing of the matter, I said, I will not stop here. I will come to your residence if you don't decide this listing of this matter. And when I was making this mentioning, I was not wanting any special treatment. I was only wanting a treatment which any litigant in the Supreme Court has a right to do. And even an ordinary man can always get his matter listed by simply mentioning. And the Supreme Court Bar not getting its matter listed was something which was really, really upsetting the entire bar. In that petition, we had also talked about creating this Bhagwan Das Road as the Supreme Court complex, because really speaking, ILI or that other institute which is across the road, or even that Foreign Correspondents Club, they all can be relocated elsewhere, because there is no necessity for them to remain in that location. And the needs of the Supreme Court were growing so much that all that could be utilized for the Supreme Court campus. So these were the two primary prayers in the petition. So when that altercation happened in his court and he got upset at my mentioning, I was not mentioning for any client of mine, I was not mentioning anything for myself. I already have a chamber, so it is not as if the chamber building had been constructed, I would have got a chamber. So obviously it was only a mentioning for the interest of the bar. So the bar was extremely livid, and they passed a resolution calling for a general body to deprecate what happened in the Chief Justice's court that day. And if you recall, that very day after my mentioning, two senior lawyers, Mr. Sibal and Mr. Neeraj Kaul, stood up and started apologizing on my behalf as if they were representing the bar, and that they were upset why I escalated the issue, when my escalation was nothing to do with anything which I said to the Chief Justice which could have offended him. I only wanted the petition to be listed. So when the Chief Justice saw that this general body is being called for this incident, he immediately listed the matter before a special bench. So obviously I had to give up that call for the general body, and the matter was heard at length by the special bench. If I'm not mistaken, Justice Sanjay Kaul was also there in that bench, and they then delivered a judgment. And in that judgment, for the first time, they said that the bar is a stakeholder for every infrastructure that is to be added in the Supreme Court, and the bar will be consulted whenever any infrastructure is to be built in the Supreme Court. And then there was this building coming behind the Supreme Court, the so-called new building. It was still at the planning stage, and Justice D.Y, Justice Suryakant were part of the committee for the new building. So 3-4 things happened because of this matter being escalated. Firstly, the matter was listed and the Supreme Court on the judicial side acknowledged the importance of the bar in deciding every infrastructure. And because Justice D.Y and Justice Suryakant were there in that building committee, in the new building they decided to give the president of the bar a big office, the secretary of the bar a big office, a committee room, etc. So all that was decided because of that petition in the Supreme Court, and with judges who felt the needs of the bar. As far as the land is concerned, this land, of course, is still an issue which is yet to be solved, because there is some more land which is sought to be added to that, and that issue is still pending. But the most, surprising thing that happened thereafter was that after delivering this judgment and saying that bar is an equal stakeholder in every infrastructure, suddenly a decision is taken to build a museum in the high security area. Now, high security area, a common man cannot come. Even we can't go without a proper pass in the high security. We have got that proximity, cards which give us access to that high security area, and only clients who have their matters listed, only they can go in that high security area. So there was no point of making a museum in that area, and I believe about 26 crores have been spent on that museum, and I believe even nobody in the Supreme Court was consulted. I believe even no tender was issued for constructing that museum, and all of a sudden we got intimation that the museum is being inaugurated. So I wrote a letter. Then I was not the president of the bar, so I wrote a letter and got it delivered that night at his residence, that don't inaugurate this museum, because bar is in need of a lot of more space. And while our members have increased from, initially we were hardly 500 to 700 members. Today we are more than 22,000 members, and there is no place for us to stand also. Even in all the libraries where we get some place to sit, even senior members sometimes have to wait for several minutes to get a seat for themselves. And there is a huge scarcity of space for our lawyers. We don't have a lunch room. We have a very small lunch room. We don't have a proper canteen. We don't have places where we can do, virtual hearings. So there are so many needs of the bar which could have been addressed if that area could have been given to the bar. And that was the demand of the bar all along. And suddenly a museum comes up in that area. So obviously he, delivered a judgment and didn't follow it himself. And I don't know whether someday he will be made accountable for this or not, but definitely it is waste of public exchequer's money. Ultimately, when the government gives money to the Supreme Court, it is not meant for the judges themselves, it is meant for the institution. And when I say institution, I mean the litigants. They are the primary, I would say, stakeholders in this institution, because the cases are for them. I mean, the judges and the lawyers are meant to get them justice. So they are the primary and the most important stakeholders in the institution. The lawyers and the judges are the secondary stakeholders in the institution, because we ultimately are in the process of getting these litigants justice. So to get them proper place, to get them places to sit, to get them places to, wait, should be the first criteria. And to ensure that the growing numbers of lawyers in the courtroom have adequate space inside the courtroom, it should be the second criteria. And of course, I'm sure judges definitely have to be taken care of. And if the strength of the Supreme Court were to increase, I'm sure in the new building, they would already be planning how to accommodate the additional judges as well. But when you decide to accommodate the additional judges, you also have to simultaneously decide to accommodate or provide for the growing numbers of lawyers coming to Supreme Court. This tenure of mine, I had to take a very, I would say, a decision which was not, close to my heart. We had to stop interns from coming to the Supreme Court. Only because we don't have space for lawyers. Where do the interns, if they also come and cramp the institution, where do the lawyers go? So, I feel even the media has not been given proper place in the Supreme Court. The media should also be given a proper due, because media is also an integral part of the institution. Ultimately, who will check this institution? The institution will be checked by the people of this country, by the media, and and not only the institution. We as lawyers and the judges also are ultimately checked, kept in check by the media and the people of this country. So I think media also has a very important role to play, and they also they have place. I'm not saying they don't have place, but they don't have that kind of importance in the planning of areas in the Supreme Court. This is where I feel that a lot has gone wrong, but I'm sure in the days to come, with a Chief Justice and the next Chief Justice and even the Chief Justice thereafter, Justice Suryakant and Justice Vikram Nath, all being, alive to the needs of the bar and to the needs of the litigants in this institution, I'm sure things will change. But what has happened so far is something which I personally feel, is not conducive to the proper functioning of the Supreme Court. We are supposed to, set an example. The judiciary is supposed to set an example. We always talk of tendering in every major project which is to be given by any state functionary. And this is all money of the Consolidated Fund of India. So if you do a project like this, where the project is a non-starter from day one, if you go and see the footfalls in the museum, there are hardly any people visiting the museum. The lawyers only in their free time once in a while sometimes go to see what is happening there, but no outsider can come to that museum. So what was the purpose of having the museum like that? And defying your own judgment, which said that the bar is to be consulted every time any infrastructure development is to happen in the Supreme Court. So I think a lot has gone wrong, and things will need to be corrected very soon.
So there's also proposed auditorium of the SCBA, which has been pending for some time. What is the update on that?
So that's a very interesting point. So in the year 2000, on our centenary year, Mr. Ram Jethmalani was the law minister, if I'm not mistaken, and he had given 1 crore to the Supreme Court Bar Association to have its own auditorium. But unfortunately, no land was allocated for that auditorium till date. This is also one of my, important points in my agenda for this year, that I should be able to get a land, suitable land allocated for the Supreme Court Bar Association, because we don't have, firstly, we don't have an auditorium of our own, and we don't have a club of our own. When I say a club, I don't mean club in the, I mean a club in the sense of stress of lawyers being of unwinding, playing a sport, or because as I have always said, that the lawyers are the people with the least amount of social security, so they are the ones who have to take care of the maximum of their physical and mental well-being. And physical and mental well-being can be best taken care of by getting involved in a sport or getting into yoga. And these are things which can be done in a facility which can be created for lawyers. Unfortunately, as of date, we have a small gym in the Supreme Court, which also has come out very recently. Up till then, we didn't even have that. So I think we need to, create sufficient infrastructure for the legal community, so that more and more of us don't fall sick, firstly, and more of us don't, have to use the social security that I'm talking about, and are able to take care of themselves. And this will be a great way of ensuring that this part of social security is of the legal community are taken care of.